Are you one of those kinds of people like likes to plan ahead? And then do you have friends who like to kind of wing it, just see how things feel? You try to make plans with them and they're like, oh, let's just see what it's like tomorrow. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today on This Life. Planning or winging it.
I have a friend whose birthday was coming up, and this last week, and I've been asking her several months what she would like. What do you want to do for your birthday, I asked. Well, she wasn't sure. She was going to get back with me. And so the months passed, and finally, Friday, her birthday was Sunday, I said, have you decided what you want for your birthday? And she said, yes. I finally decided, and I was getting ready for the big shock. And she said, I would like a gift card to Costco.
She didn't want to do anything.
I'm like, we waited 6 months for that. So I'm a planner, and she isn't a planner, and she's just very content to just wait till the last minute and go to Costco. And that's what we did. We had a wonderful shopping trip, and I could see the benefits of waiting till the last minute. I had time, but what if I hadn't?
You know, what I saw last week, I can go both ways, I think. I can plan or I can wing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were we had an event that was coming up, and I had been asking for weeks, tell me what the outline is. I know I have a specific part to play, but just tell me what the outline is. Okay, I'll send it to you. Well, I didn't get the information until Friday. The event was on Sunday. And it was like, oh, okay. And then when we started going through the paces and seeing who was supposed to be where and who was supposed to be standing where and who was doing what, everybody didn't know all the information. Yeah. And so it left me I felt very uncomfortable in that situation. And then I had to take more charge than I really wanted to. And so when you're doing major events, please plan.
Comes the anguished cry.
Comes the anguished cry.
Yeah.
Are you reaching out to the audience?
The whole world.
TV audience?
Just plan and share those plans with others so they'll know the part that they fit.
Well, now let me give you an opposing view. I recently am privileged to start a new job. I'll be starting a new job soon, and it's a kind of position where I don't have to have rigid structure. You notice I say don't have to have rigid structure. And, when I was a nurse, there had to be structure. You had to write times. Everything that happened, you had to write down, keep track of IVs, keep track of medications, all these things. And I honestly think that was the hardest part of nursing for me, was staying on task, because I would be happy, and I didn't do this, but I'd be happy just sit down and say, well, now let's just chat for a while. And what do you think you need today? And to be a little bit more relaxed. And finally, I'm going to be working at a position where I can just throw structure mostly to the wind and create something that has a different pace. And I feel my whole body relaxing. I feel myself happier, because there are a few things I plan, but typically I fly by the seat of my pants more than I probably should. But there's something kind of exhilarating and kind of freeing about not being locked into everything, and I like that.
Well, as long as we're confessing here.
Okay.
I love to fly by the seat of my pants if there's a plan. So in other words, I like to have a plan.
A structure.
And then I'm totally happy to leave it. So like for vacation, I need at least a semblance of a plan. What country are we going to?
Yes.
Well, some of those
I don't
things,
need to know what hotel or all of that. I just need a general plan. And then once we get there, I'll be the first to say, how about this? How about this? How about... But to not have a plan at all is hard.
Well, I don't think I'd like that either.
Well, funny enough about vacation, several years ago, I had gone back to my home country of Jamaica on a holiday, and I was still living in New York at the time, so I had a very, very New York mentality. And I remember a friend of mine said he was coming to pick me up to go to the beach. Well, I thought he was coming at 9 o'clock. He showed up at noon.
And I bet, was he even, did
Oh,
he even
not
feel
even
bad?
fazed.
He felt no problems whatsoever.
None,
So
yeah.
I said to him, I've been sitting here all day. He said, are you on vacation? I said, yes. He said, well, you've forgotten what we say in Jamaica? No problem. I'm like, dude,
Go easy.
I've been sitting here for 3 hours. There are things I could have been doing for 3 hours.
There's a problem.
He said, well, what you have been doing? It's like, I don't know. I just thought you were coming early. And I realized that I really had this whole idea of move, plan, execute. And it's good to have the balance. And I have been learning to do both.
But wouldn't you have felt better if he had called and said, I'm not going to be there for 3 hours? So you
Yes.
would have known what to do with your spare time?
Yes, I could have just laid around.
In the knowledge that
In
he
the knowledge
wouldn't be
that-
there.
No rush.
See, that's what's hard.
Yeah. So
Well, I did take a vacation. When I turned 30, I got in the car and I drove wherever I felt and went wherever I wanted and stayed wherever I wanted. And it was one of the best vacations of my life. Of course, I went alone,
yes.
which I would have driven someone else completely to distraction. But there is some freedom. I just want to make a pitch for that
Yes.
freedom
Yes.
again.
Well, I
Just-
think the freedom in it, because I can live that way as well. But so it's when you're by yourself, there's no
You can
problem
do
with
that.
winging it. When
But
you have other people
that's it,
Yes.
that's it.
that you're having to consider their schedules and their lives and even their temperament and personality.
Consideration,
good.
I think,
Yeah.
is the key.
Well, one of the worst vacations I ever took, I know our topic isn't vacations, but one of the worst ones is one of those group things where you're together with a group of people that you don't know. You know, and on the thing it says 10:09, meet wherever, 10:12,
Oh,
something
yes,
else happens. And I looked at that schedule and I thought, now I'm going to die.
Well, we have a very interesting thought here of a situation that actually I could have written this about my own sister and I, Sharika and Levon. They are sisters living in Southern California with their husbands. They're quite happy that their parents have asked if they could spend 2 weeks visiting them in 3 months' time. The day after the girls have learned of their parents' visit, Levon calls Sharika and asks what days of their parents' visits she would like to be responsible for cooking a family meal that both families can attend. Sharika says, let's just see how we feel when they are here. I don't mind cooking for all of us at any time. Levon doesn't seem happy and says, just tell me what night you want to have us there. We have to make a plan. Sharika says, I don't want a plan. That will make me feel like I'm in a straitjacket. Why can't we just wait and see? How can we know whether or not something might come up, like someone dropping by or spontaneous decision to go on a day trip or out for dinner? Levon is horrified and says, that's just the problem. I have to know ahead so I can plan. Sharika says, Levon, you don't even work. Why can't we just wait and see how we feel? Sharika gets up and leaves the conversation in a huff.
Oh, this sounds so familiar.
This sounds very sisterly too, doesn't
Yes, yes. Well, you know, they do have 3 months.
it? Yes, they do.
They have
Which
3
one are
months.
you, Levon or Sharika?
You know, I could see myself being both of them, because I'm thinking, if I'm the one, if I have young children, you know, I want to know ahead of time, because there's schedules, there's soccer, there's, you know, ballet, there's all kinds of things going on, so you want to know. But I think it'd be easy to go, I'll do the weekends. Give me the weekends, because I can, you know,
You can work
it's a lot more
around.
flexibility. But if it's going to be in the week, I can understand that. Being parents of young children now, I'm like, yeah, their lives are pretty scripted.
We both had to. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I can understand if you're going to make some very complicated meal and you need to get groceries that are perishable and but it is 3 months out.
Oh, right.
But if you need to go shopping and have certain things in the refrigerator that are at their peak and ready to cook, that's one thing. But I just have a hard time with, well, you do this at that time and I'll do this at that time. And it really puts the parents on a schedule, and I doubt that they really
Want to be on that schedule.
want
Well,
that.
it's interesting. I see it as stress relieving, not stress producing. And that's probably why this goes a little deeper. I call it stress relieving because once we decide who cooks what meal, then it's out of my hair. It's gone. I don't have to worry about it. And if we come up to the time when I'm supposed to cook dinner and I don't have to cook dinner, I'm going to be happy. So that's where leaving the schedule is okay. But what is hard to understand is that when I like to plan ahead, it actually causes stress for the other person. Not to make the decisions ahead, the very act of decision making 3 months out is
right.
stressful. They don't care what's happening now. They just don't want to talk about that so early.
So, yeah. And I can imagine them being sisters. That has been a bone of contention their whole lives. You know,
Oh, yes.
You see, that's the way you get.
That's right.
I hate that.
That's
You did
right.
it here. And
That's right. You know,
You always
You
want to
always-
talk about things ahead of time.
Why can't you be spontaneous? Why do you always have to have a plan?
well, there's some beauty in spontaneity, but you're right, it does bother people around you. And
Well, let's talk about the personality. I mean, it is a different personality type. And we've talked about the Myers-Briggs test on this program, but the one part that this relates to is that last letter, that being either J or P. Either you're closed-ended, you want to plan ahead and it reduces your stress, or you want to be spontaneous and you're in there somewhere.
I think I'm like right in the middle of the two.
I am. I'm equal, and
Yeah.
maybe you are.
Yeah.
I test out to be in the middle, but my preferred way of being is just letting things
flow and unfold.
As a matter of fact, when I was in college, I sang a lot, and my accompanist never knew from one time to the next what I was going to do. And so I'd stand up to sing, and I would just be hit with inspiration, and I'd repeat the last chorus. He didn't know, and he'd just keep playing. And I'd think, I kind of liked how that went. Let's just do the last verse. And I'd launch off into something else. And he had to learn to stay with me because I didn't want to sing the same old thing, the same
Same
boring,
way.
predictable
Oh,
way.
Every
no,
way,
I
all
think
the
we're all
time.
similar on
Yeah.
that.
And part of it just seems to be creative.
Yes.
If you have someone that
Yes.
can roll with you.
If
on
you
that.
have something, the problem I've faced is that it doesn't, other people don't often like that. It's like if you're supposed to speak somewhere, they don't want you to come running in at the last 5 minutes.
I say, I've changed my topic.
Oh, yes.
Oh, exactly. I got a sudden inspiration this morning about a different title.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard for people.
And then when you're living in a community with people, I think, however, at some point people get to know you and go, that's the way she is. And I'm curious about Shariq and Lavone. They've been sisters for their whole lives, yeah? So at this point,
They should know.
they should know. I'm trying to remember who's who. Lavone is horrified and says, that's the problem. She has the plan. And Sharika says, Lavone, you don't even work. So here it is that Lavone knows her sister is going to just go with the flow, but she still wants to plan.
She expects her to be
To be
how she wants
how
her
she
to.
wants her to
Well,
be.
couples are like that too.
Yeah.
You marry someone and you know that they're many cases the opposite or in a way that isn't like you. And yet and I know, and we all know people who spent their entire 50 or 60 years of married life trying to push that person
Change
into
the
a mold
person.
so they
Well,
can be like that, like they are.
And what's funny is like what I've heard in couples, one will say, she is always late. And the other one will say, I'm not late. I'm never late. I'm always there right in the nick of time. And then he says, but when you're there in the nick of time, we can't get where we're supposed to be.
Oh,
And he says to a counselor, how can I get her there earlier? Well, give it up. It's not going to happen.
Take a separate car.
Take a separate car.
when
Yeah.
you said it, did you see me go,
Uh-huh.
I noticed that right off. Do you want to share
yes.
some?
Do you have a
Yes,
confession?
I'm promptness challenge.
You're what?
Promptness challenge.
Are you?
My husband, God bless him, because he's been working with me some 14 and a half years with this issue. And, he says, I don't understand it. What is it? What is wrong? Why can't you get it? Let's go early. And I can't get it, how it is that he has no problem with leaving the house a mess before we leave to go somewhere. So I say to him, and it's, as you're right, it's the whole planning it, winging it kind of thing. He's like, hey, when we come back, we can pick that stuff up. Let's just go where we're having to go. And I go, I don't want to come back to pick this stuff up. We have a few minutes. I move pretty fast. Let's get it done.
Well,
Isn't that
that's-
interesting?
That's funny because the people who are wing it more, they are always sure that they can crowd a bit more into that 1 or 2 minutes.
And so I think that's where the struggle is of how do you bring balance. So I think it's gotten to the point, very rarely does he get angry now. It's just, this is the way that she is. So on the days when I do get out the house on time, it's usually Sabbath mornings that we have this problem going to church. You know, last Saturday he said, "You did good today, Mommy. That was real good. You know,
Sweet.
you were really working on it." And I was like, yeah.
Did you get there early or just on time?
Just on time. Just on time, you know, and it's again, he's also rubbed off of me though. Don't you think that happens in relationships as well, where you have the one that's winging it and the one that wants to plan, that over time, if they're both willing, they learn to adjust and go with the flow. So even though there are things he wants me to about, there are things that I now become like him, and I'm like, you know, I'm not going to worry about it as much.
It strikes me that something that would really help this is if people, a couple or siblings, could sit down and say, you know, when I don't have things planned, this is my internal experience. I get panicky. I feel like I'm not going to be able to manage this thing or whatever it is, and here's as much about it as I know. And what happens when this, you know, when you feel like you have to be on a strict schedule? What comes up for you? So you can at least respect the motive of the other person. I asked somebody to accompany someone to sing in another week, and she emailed me back and she said, "It strikes me as really inconsiderate to wait till the last minute." And I thought, last minute, we've got a week.
Exactly.
And so I had to quickly make amends and say, that's not my motive. And I'm just bobbing along, and I didn't think about the timeliness of that.
Now, I also sing very often, and there's some musicians that are my go-to musicians that I know if something's going on in something that I'm doing, I can say, let's go. And I don't have to tell them what I'm about to sing. I hit that first note, they play along with me, and so they're my go-to people because I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to stress about it, planning ahead. And even though singing is something that I do think you should have a sense of where we're going and what we're doing, but you find that musicians that are really open to just kind of going with the flow, and they just go with you. You flip the note, change the song, lower it, go higher.
But you have to realize that those same people, if you were to ask them over to your house, they would probably say, "I don't know right now. I'll get back with you."
Yes, that's
and they
true.
won't until the last minute. I mean, it kind of all goes together. I have a nephew that plans ahead, and we were on vacation, he wanted to make a plan, and we're all thinking, really? But what the plan was, he drew it on chalk that said, "Eat, play." Eat, play, eat, play, eat. And his way of playing ahead was that flexible, but he had to do it. So he had to write it on the board.
You know, I think it's good for kids, especially to have a schedule and to have predictability. And I think when you're raising a family, that's one time when I think you have to set aside some of the free flow and make sure that the surroundings for the child is predictable and that there's a pattern and that they know what to expect and they have a sense of competence and confidence when they know how to comply with what happens next.
And that's really important because I think, you know, there are books out there on the market that tell you about how to raise your child and how to prepare, but you know, how to learn who your child is and then kind of fit their schedule. But I'm telling you, for me, in our house, I'm so happy that I know when bedtime is. I don't want it to fluctuate from day to day. I know that by 8.
So you plan some things and wing other things.
But you wing other things. So we know by 8 o'clock you should be bathed and ready for bed. Maybe we'll read 6 stories tonight. Maybe we'll read 1. I'm willing to be flexible in those areas. But I find that when I see other families who don't have some kind of structure, their children, just their development is just very different. They get thrown off very easily, while ours tend to be, and others that I've seen, they know where they're going. There's a sense of safety and security. When I know when I wake up, this is what I'm going to do. And especially once they start going to school, you know, you see a child, a substitute teacher comes in. That's not the way Miss Gober does it. First we go there, then we do this, then we do this. Like, I'm not Miss Gober. That's okay, but that's the way Miss Gober does it. They really like the rhythm of the routine.
So for Levon and Sharika, then we might say, for Levon, who needs to plan ahead, maybe Levon can say, okay, all right, I'll give up planning right now, but I need to start the plan a month from now. Can you give that much? And maybe make a contract about when they can start the planning process.
And Sharika could say, you know what, I'll just do the weekend. We don't even have to wait that far. Be able to say, look, I'll do the weekends. You want to take the weekdays since you need to have more structure. You do the weekdays, I'll do the weekend. And if something happens, as we come closer, we can change.
Although if Sharika really doesn't like planning ahead, she probably
She'll
won't even
forget.
say that. Or she'll forget.
forget the
Okay,
meeting.
fine, I'll do the weekends. And then in a month from now, she'll say, we did not have that conversation.
Wow.
Okay, we're to our email questions.
I'm married to a woman who always wants to plan ahead. She even wants to plan every detail of our vacations. I just want to see what turns up. I feel stressed by always having to know ahead what we're doing. Is there any way I can help her relax? It's driving me crazy.
I feel sorry for you, man.
I wonder if there are children in that family and if she has to do planning for more than just herself. We don't know that.
Right.
We don't know that, that's right.
Right. And it's interesting. He's asking for her to get help, to help her get relaxed.
She's probably asking for him to
him
get
to
help.
get more structured.
But it's interesting, if it's a vacation, it's a time to really relax. And I know I went on a vacation with a group once, and we went to the beach, and while we were on the beach, there was some downtime with just, let's dig in the sand or something. And the guy wanted to lead some inspirational singing on the beach. And I said, really? I want to just be quiet. I don't know what I want to sit here and do that. So it's that regimentation that's
I
not
want to
always
take up
fun.
for the woman here, though. I'm guessing that even in her plan, she has scheduled downtime. So I don't think we should make the assumption that because someone
Well, that's a
plans
thought. You can do that.
they don't rest.
Or they plan to rest.
Or that they plan
Plan
to
to
rest,
rest.
yeah.
That's true.
But when he says it's driving me crazy, this is something that he's going to have to realize isn't likely to change. If she's a planner, she'll always be a planner.
What is the real harm in being spontaneous? Oh, this is my question. I could have written this. What is the real harm in being spontaneous and doing things spontaneously and how you want? Aren't people who have to have a plan just anxious, rigid worrywarts?
That's how they appear. Yeah.
That's how they appear to someone like me who has to always plan out everything.
So they aren't all just anxious, rigid worrywarts. People who need to plan.
Oh,
Right.
I don't think so.
Right.
Is someone, I become more of a planner when I'm around people who aren't planners.
Yes.
But if I'm around someone who's a planner,
Planner.
then I become
That's
the
spontaneous.
spontaneous
See
one.
what happens. Yeah.
My sister called this morning and asked if I want to join her next year on a cruise. I can't even relate to people who plan a whole year ahead for things. I know that decisions have to be made, but how do you plan that far ahead? How do people know what they're doing a year from now?
Oh. Well, if you're going to go on a cruise,
If you're going on a cruise, you have
need
to know.
a year in advance because you can pay it
That's
out,
right.
pay for it. You need to put the time in your schedule so that you know this is the time that I'm going, this is when I'm leaving. And with the way costs are for flying nowadays, the earlier you can buy those tickets, the
better
better
off.
it is. So it
You know-
definitely is a benefit to plan.
I will say in defense of people who need a plan, that is, it's not a personality disorder to need a plan and to
No,
need structure. It's
no.
a personality type. And so I think people have a sense of personal competence and control, and they have to think ahead and make sure that they can do everything that's required by whatever is coming up. And so having a plan helps them mentally organize. And so I think that when we understand that that's how such individuals are, we can certainly respond to that need that they have rather than just our aversion to that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
If we
Oh,
were in
sure.
church, I would have said to you, say that again. Personality disorder. It's not a personality disorder of
No.
the people who want to plan.
Or
It's not
the
a
other
Or
side.
the other side. It's not a personality disorder.
No.
It's just a personality type.
I'll tell you what, though, if you have 3 people in a group who wing it, it's going to be hard to get something done.
That's
Or
true.
if you have 3 planners, it's going to be hard to enjoy yourself. No, actually, I shouldn't say that. It's going to be hard to have a more free-floating time.
Sure.
I work for a person who is totally disorganized, and I can't stand it. I never know what is going to happen, what is expected of me, or how to pull together things that will be required for meetings. I might get a meeting agenda and work hard to put together all the documentation that is needed, but my boss will show up and decide that we should all go outside the building and do some airy-fairy exercise about our emotions instead. I'm sorry. I'm pulling my hair out. Please help. Oh my goodness, poor person. Can you imagine planning all that way out? And then they go, oh, let's go outside.
We'll just throw that aside and do this. We've all been around people like that.
I have to tell you, I couldn't work under this situation. I mean, I couldn't. There's no way. I'm sorry.
So we say get another job.
Well, no, and I think I represent some people that would need to get another job.
Sure.
I can wing it, but when it comes to work and a plan having been established, I need the boss to carry through with it unless there's a reason why it's being thrown to the wind. But just to decide to go out and do some emotional exercise, I think I'd lose it there. I'll pull my hair out.
I think if I were responsible for coming up with the agenda and all the materials, I think I would have to talk to the boss and say, you know, here's my dilemma. It makes me look bad because I haven't provided what's needed, because you have so far strayed.
I'm a person who plans ahead. Sometimes I'll invite people over and they'll promise to get back with me, but they don't. Then just the day before, they call and say that they're coming. I did this just this week. I want to tell them that the invitation has long since expired, but that seems unkind. What is the proper way to deal with this? No, I was on the other side of this where someone had asked me over, and I just didn't know ahead. And you keep waiting to see, is that going to happen or that? And I called them like 2 days before saying, is the invitation still open? I felt terrible. But
Well, I think when that's happened to me, I've been able to say something like, well, though it's happened to me twice, I've been able to say, oh, we didn't hear from you, I'm so sorry, we made other plans. Because if I
there you
don't,
go.
then I get resentful and I'll never ask
Right.
that person back again because I just think they're rude, and I'll attribute a lot of things to them that.
wow, I'll try not to do that to you, Barbara.
No, but I mean, I might, especially if I've got all these groceries and, I'm preparing and so forth.
Right, right.
Wow.
Made other
I
plans.
never thought about that. Well, I'm going to leave that there. My business partner and I have been working together for several years. I'm at my wit's end because I'm doing the lion's share of the planning for the success. She's willing to make time to plan for the day-to-day operation of the business. However, she resists planning for the future. What should I do?
I say they've got a good team right there.
They're good opposites, aren't they?
They're good opposites. And shouldn't we be happy for the times when people are different than we are?
Yeah.
We're asking the question today, is it better to plan ahead or just wing it? And I think we've answered that by saying it just depends. It depends on who you are and what lowers your stress. And to be open to the people who are different than you are. Thank you for joining us on This Life.